Welcome to our September 6, 2012 Gilbert Town Council meeting. I officially call the meeting to order. We will begin with an invocation and pledge of allegiance. As noted on the agenda, the invocation may be offered by a person of any religion, faith, belief, or non-belief, as well as council members. A list of volunteers is maintained by the town clerk, and interested persons should contact the clerk for further information. Councilmember Victor Petersen will lead us in the invocation, after which the Scouts will be introduced by Councilmember Cook, and we'll start with the Scout that will help us with the pledge. We invite those here in council chambers to please arise.
Our dear Father in heaven, we humbly bow our heads now before thee, seeking thy goodness and grace upon us. Father, we are grateful that we can gather peaceably. We are grateful that we can have our voices heard. We are grateful to have the protections of our individual rights secured by our government. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for our associations with one another, that we can be friends and we can lift and help and serve each other. Our Heavenly Father, we ask thee to bless us with wisdom, with inspiration, with peace, with calmness. Help us, Father, to have thy wisdom to make decisions that will bless and help and lift all of those in our town. We pray for guidance and kindness in our hearts always, and that we can always do what is right and best. And this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Mayor, tonight we have Bryson that will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bryson. Well, we have a wonderful group here, Mayor, and I'd like to ask them to introduce yourself by your name, your troop, and your rank.
I'm Brian Bloom, Scoutmaster for Troop 811 from Gilbert, Arizona.
My name is Bryson Brian Holt. I am a Star Scout from Troop 811 in Gilbert, Arizona.
My name is Jacob Urbanik. I am a rank first class, and I am Troop 811 from Gilbert, Arizona.
My name is Benjamin Giles, and I am from Troop 811 and also have my first class.
My name is Nick Wilson. I am in Troop 811, and I also have my first class. I'm also from Gilbert, Arizona.
My name is Jackson, and I am in Troop 811, and I am first class too, and I live in Gilbert, Arizona.
My name is Dax DeCampo. I'm in Troop 811, and I'm a first class also.
Ty Stockstader, Troop 811, first class.
Seth Hamblin, Troop 811, Star Scout.
Colin Davis is Troop 811, first class.
Well, thank you very much. As a thank you for coming this evening, I've handed out to you the United States Constitution for you to memorize, and then next week we'll give you a test. May we hear a round of applause for our Scouts tonight. Thank you.
Our town clerk, Kathy Templeton, will conduct the roll call.
Mayor Lewis.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sens. Here. Councilmember Cook. Here. Councilmember Cooper.
Here.
Councilmember Daniels.
Here.
Councilmember Petersen.
Here.
Councilmember Ray.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. We invite those who will be receiving an oath of office to please come forward. Volunteerism in Gilbert is a foundation of what makes us a great community. The three individuals to my right, in just a moment, will take an oath of office. They are service-oriented and have volunteered to serve on boards and commissions for the town of Gilbert. And What will happen in just a moment, you'll raise your right hand and take the oath, and when it's completed, you'll sign the document, and then you're official. Let me begin by handing the mic. Jim, I'll start with you. If you can just introduce yourself, please.
My name's Jim Torgeson.
Joyce Meyer.
Craig Coolard.
Keep the mic. If the three of you could please raise your right hand. Jim, you can best you can put the mic in a spot where all three of you can be heard. There is a point where a redevelopment commission will be different from our human relations commission and so forth, and so we'll slow down at that point, but it will sound differently, but everything else will sound the same. I, if you could please state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona and the ordinances of the town of Gilbert, Maricopa County, Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of, and this is where Redevelopment Commission and
Relations Commission.
just for everyone to hear, so Redevelopment Commission for Jim and for Joyce and Craig, it is the Human Relations, Culture, and Arts Promotion Commission. And I think I heard you say that. In Gilbert, Arizona, according to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations. Councilmember Cooper, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Ray, Jenny, would you mind coming up? Well, one of the great pleasures of being an elected official is we get to represent the people. And as we represent each of you, Gilbert residents that are here tonight, we get to thank people on your behalf. And that's what we get to do tonight as we recognize Ray Patton for an amazing career here with the town of Gilbert. He's recently retired. And so I'm gonna, before I kind of tell a little bit more about you, I'm gonna let you tell a little bit about you first, and then also introduce your sweet wife, and then I'll tell the rest of our residents some of the great things you've done.
Thank you. First, I'll introduce my wife. My wife, Jenny's been with me through this whole, this time, and she's kept me pretty strong and stable. That's good. I want to thank the mayor and council for this recognition. I've been with the town about 31 years, just shy of it. I've seen a lot of growth and enjoyed almost every moment of it. There's been a lot of good years and a few not so good years. I've been blessed with a really good group of people to work with and to work for, and that's about it. I've really enjoyed it. It's been an experience. Thank you.
It's hard to summarize 31 years, right? My daughter just turned 10 not too long ago, and I was making a joke at Ray's retirement a couple weeks ago that when he started, I was 10, and so I wanted everyone in Gilbert to know how old I am. I'm going to read just a little bit about it. It has been neat to have Ray at the town of Gilbert. And Mayor Lewis has a certificate of appreciation here for you. And I'll just read parts of it here. As mayor of the town of Gilbert, it's my distinct pleasure to express sincere appreciation to Permit and Planning Services Manager Raymond Patton III upon his retirement from the town of Gilbert. Since 1981, Ray has served the town of Gilbert and the building official profession admirably in many roles. It is with immense gratitude that we recognize and commend him for his extensive service. And here's some fun stats. When first being hired by the town as employee number 29, I just checked my badge. I'm 4,054. In 1981, Ray's job duties included plan reviewer, building inspector, and code enforcing officer. He has tirelessly served 62 council members, wow, 11 mayors, and 5 town managers. During Ray's tenure, his teams issued nearly 60,000 residential building permits, and chances are if you're watching this and you live in Gilbert, you're living in a home that was approved through his office. As the town grew from a population of 6,000 to over 220,000. Mr. Patton's commitment and dedication to protecting the integrity of our permit and planning process leaves a legacy of which the town of Gilbert can be quite proud. And then it goes on to recognize your 31 years. But on behalf of the town council and the citizens of our community, it is with immense respect and gratefulness for Raymond Patton's service to the people of Gilbert that I convey our deep appreciation for his outstanding contributions and hard work. So a big hand of applause as I hand this over to you. Very good. Thank you for your service. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Well, we have one more tonight to recognize Les. Come on up, please. Les is retired from the Gilbert Police Department. And what badge number were you?
26.
Sorry. Old timer. So, Les, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you enjoyed those 31 years on lonely nights out on patrol in Gilbert?
I'll say very little.
Chief's not listening.
Okay. I think it was alluded to when I started in May of 1981. There was actually 5,700 people here, so you can imagine I've seen quite a few changes. And it goes quick. I can't believe it's been 31 years, but and two, I appreciate the mayor and council and their recognition.
Great, thank you. Now, did you ever get involved? I know when I first moved to Gilbert, and that was before you came. Where's Chief? Oh, there he is in the back. Chief was one of our first police officers in Gilbert when I moved here, and I think he was the one that used to, we had 2 patrol cars. One was on patrol and one was parked alongside the road as a decoy.
Actually, after the chief left Gilbert, he went to go work for the sheriff's department, and he and I actually worked the road together when I was with Gilbert PD and he was with the SO.
Cool, long-term relationship. Well, good. Well, Mayor John Lewis, it is his distinct pleasure to express sincere appreciation to Police Officer Les May upon his retirement from the Gilbert Police Department. Since 1981, serving tirelessly and admirably, Officer May has been an invaluable member of the department. It is with gratitude and appreciation that we recognize and commend him for his long-standing service. Police Officer May has served with true distinction throughout his career. He has received many written letters of appreciation from citizens, commendations from department personnel, and on-the-spot recognitions for the development of domestic violence workshops and problem-solving-oriented policing. Officer May has made incredible contributions to the Gilbert Police Department, and his efforts have helped strengthen the department. Throughout his career, he has been steadfast leader, tireless advocate for training. Officer May served with integrity as a field training officer for 12 years. His efforts helped reinforce the field training program and develop the framework for Gilbert's current field training program. Officer May was instrumental in introducing and implementing the first defensive driving program, which has evolved into the recognized Smith system. He also became one of the first defensive driving instructors in the department, so he knows how to get around in a police car, I'm sure. Officer Les May leaves the police department with the respect of his colleagues for his dedication to public service and passion for training. His colleagues will always remember his enthusiasm for education and devotion to placing quality officers on the road. As Officer May brings to close his distinguished 31 years of service with the Gilbert Police Department, the Mayor commends and thanks him for his outstanding commitment to serving our community by promoting public safety and defending our citizens. His diligence to duty and the strength of character have helped to steer Gilbert through a period of rapid growth, and his service and dedication will be missed. Moreover, his wisdom, advice, and friendship have contributed to the betterment of the community and strengthened the Town of Gilbert Police Department. On behalf of the Town Council and the citizens of our community, Mayor John Lewis expresses his heartfelt appreciation to Officer May for his service to the people of Gilbert and wish him the very best in all of his future endeavors.
Councilmember Ray, it's time for the Raiders. After those two have served for so many years, it's time for the Raiders. Raiders, come on down.
Make sure your coach comes too. Is your coach coming? Okay.
Bring the baby.
It's a family-friendly community, so bring the kids too. It's okay. So this is the Gilbert 14-year-old Raiders flag football team. I'm going to go ahead and read a certificate that's given to each one of them. We'll give their certificates to the coach, and then we'll pass the microphone down and have the coach say a couple words about the team, and then have each player go ahead and introduce themselves if they would. The certificate of recognition says that in recognition for their contribution to the Gilbert Raiders flag football team and for winning the 2012 National Football League Flag Football Regional Tournament in Austin, Texas, the Raiders competed against teams from 7 states and finished with a record of 6-0. They are now qualified to compete in the NFL Flag Football National Championship during Super Bowl week in February 2013. We wish to express our pride in their accomplishment and our appreciation for their fine publicity they have brought to our community through their good sportsmanship and inspired team play. Let's give a round of applause for the Raiders.
Good evening. My name is Gino Carducci. I'm the head coach of the Raiders. And what I'll do is give you guys a little bit of a background on our team. So the division that we play in, we're 12-14. And we went out to Austin, Texas, and competed in a tournament that literally was the best teams around the entire United States. And probably not the most athletic team, but definitely the best team. I stress to the kids from the day we first started practicing, you put your individual accolades aside, want the next guy to do good, want the next guy to succeed, and that's exactly what the boys did. They did a phenomenal job and really, really, really made me proud.
Hi, I'm Rico Yanes.
I'm Austin Spiker.
Anthony Carducci.
Dalen Betzold.
Dino Esposito.
Andy Chesko.
John Lewis? No, I have always wanted to be on a championship football team. And so to the Raiders, representing Gilbert, thank you. And we'll get a little closer for a picture. And just 2 weeks ago, we had a retreat where our topic was, as a council, as a town leadership, as a town community, becoming a high-performing team. And so here we have the example of that. So we'll scoot in a little bit. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Councilmember Petersen, if you can now read the Pillar of the Month responsibility.
As council members and town staff, we are dedicated to being reliable and fulfilling all obligations. We accept responsibility for our decisions, not making excuses. We are committed to being accountable for the services we provide.
Thank you, Councilmember Petersen. Agenda item 6A is now to have a quick summary of our National Preparedness Month. We have one of those special individuals that throughout the entire country is well known for her efforts related to preparedness. And Sheriff, if you could introduce yourself and your role at the town, and then please proceed. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Gibbons. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator for the town of Gilbert. So Mayor, Town Council, and staff, I'm here just to brief you on National Preparedness Month. So National Preparedness Month is during the month of September. This is a campaign that was founded by FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it is a time to advocate in our communities about the importance of disaster and emergency preparedness. And so the town of Gilbert will be participating in National Preparedness Month, and I wanted to provide you a little bit of information about what that looks like. So our messaging is really this. We want folks in our communities to understand how important it is for them to get or make a plan. Supplies, including food and water, to last you and your family 72 hours. Make a plan so that you and your family know what to do before an emergency occurs. And stay informed. Know your community, know the hazards and risks so that you can plan accordingly. So we're going to be reaching out and playing some PSAs on Channel 11, and I have one here for you I just wanted to share with you.
Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed today. Learn how at ready.gov.
Okay. So you can see some real quality PSAs that were available to us through FEMA, and we'll be showing those on Channel 11. In addition, we're going to be emailing our staff and really reaching out to our employees with preparedness information and planning templates for themselves and their family. In addition, we're going to also reach out through our many contacts, through our faith-based contacts, through our HOAs, through our Neighborhood Watch program, through our town volunteers, and really trying to advocate for this message. In addition, we're going to reach out through the Chamber and the Small Business Alliance and really try to share that family preparedness information, but also the business planning information. In addition, you're going to see posters displayed throughout the town in our public lobbies, in the libraries, in our community centers, and our recreation centers, as well as pamphlets and information that folks can pick up and try to read and learn more. We're also going to be reaching out to our functional needs community through the State Independent Living Council. And then our CERT volunteers are going to host an information booth at the fire station grand opening for Station 10 on September 15th. And then something I'm really excited about is we're going to have the opportunity to test our new disaster call center line. And this is a new a call center that was developed for us through Information Technology Services. It allows us to have a designated phone number open up and provide a call center in which we can put volunteers and employees on phones to take messages from the community or provide information to them directly during a disaster or an emergency. So something that's new for us and something we're going to test during the month of September. In addition, our communication folks here within the town have done a great job, and between press releases and tweeting and our web page and blogging, they're really helping to push out that information, and we're really appreciative of that. And then also in our town utility bills, there's a message box, and so in the town utility bill through the month of September, we do have a message in our utility box. So as you can see, we're really going to reach out to our community and advocate about the importance of emergency and disaster preparedness, and really try to challenge them to take the pledge and prepare. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you, Sherry. Any questions from the council? We accept the pledge.
Thank you.
And we will take those suggestions, and we appreciate the emphasis for the entire town of Gilbert. Thank you. We're going to slip into current events for just a moment. Councilman, Vice Mayor, since we had League of Cities,
We did.
we had 91 communities that were part of League of Cities, and Gilbert was represented by Vice Mayor Sense in the opening ceremonies. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Well, the opening ceremony is a place where all the communities in the state parade their flag, and I was honored to be the flag bearer for the town of Gilbert. Just prior to League of Cities, we were notified that we have gone from the 36th best community in the country to number 33, which makes us the best city or town, however you want to call it, in Arizona. So in honor of that, I couldn't just wear a suit or a council shirt, so I chose to wear Gilbert is number one. Gilbert is number one, and the so what does it say? I didn't read it.
Arizona's most livable city. Thank you.
Now you're going to say we're a town, not a city, but if I put town on there, you know the grief I would have gotten from all the cities in Arizona. So that's why we put city on there. So it was a great day and a great way to advertise what a great place Gilbert is. So thank you.
This morning, there were many events, too, that some of the council members had a chance to attend. First, at the Higley Unified School District, education, business, government leaders gathered together for the 2012 Business and Community Partner Awards Breakfast. And I thank our Higley Unified School District for their efforts. As we know, Gilbert right now is the fastest growing community in the state and possibly the fastest growing community in the entire United States. That has everything to do with that partnership between government, business, education, a great place for families and individuals to live. Councilmember Daniels, I understand that we received an award. Can you tell us more?
Yes, Mayor, we were very honored to receive a plaque from Higley Unified School District that we can display in our case downstairs. They are very grateful for the partnership that we have. Councilmember Cooper has been their most recent liaison and has done a fantastic job, and they're very grateful for the continued partnership between the town and the school district, and they're a great group. It's fun to be there, so thank you.
Thank you. Another announcement, and then I'm going to do a third announcement. Chief Dorn, you're going to be the third announcement if you can come down to the mic. While Chief Dorn is coming down, we also had a celebration today to commemorate a project that was completed between Williamsfield and the Eastern Canal, about a mile and a half of road that was a partnership with the county, town of Gilbert, residents, businesses, and all of us working together so that we now have 3 lanes going both directions, the medians, the sidewalks, the bike trail, the new street lights, and it's a great addition. As many, when they first enter Gilbert, that's a spot where they come, and it looks beautiful. And so all involved, it was a great team celebration, and we thank you for your efforts. Chief, the third item to bring up, next Tuesday morning is a 9/11 commemoration, and I think this would be a good time to just mention what it is, and I understand the public is invited to attend.
Thank you, Mayor. That's correct. Every year since September 11th, 2001, we've gathered at the public safety facility. Much of the work and credit really goes to my good friend and brother, Chief DeWitt. Fire department, police department have come together to remember that day and to hold a ceremony just to honor those that we lost and those that continue to serve their community. So we'll gather there, calling 7:30. I want to make sure I got the time right. Be a very short but very nice presentation. An addition we're going to have this year is a group of youngsters that are going to be singing for us. So that'll be great if you get an opportunity, and the community is welcome to come out and join us.
Thank you. So that's next Tuesday morning, 7:30, right in front of Town Hall at the 9/11 Memorial. Is that correct?
At the Public Safety Memorial.
Public Safety Memorial. Thank you. So that would...
Sorry, I've got the wrong one. We're going to do it here this year. Okay. He's the boss. He knows. Here at the 9/11 Memorial.
9/11 Memorial, because it's September 11th. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is communication from citizens. As noted, members of the public may comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the town, but not on the agenda. The council's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Vice Mayor Sens, do we have any requests?
Mayor, we do not.
Let me just look across council.
30 days in, and if we feel for any reason that we need to extend the terms of the contract, we'd have the option to do so. So that's kind of the first checkpoint, but right now it's scheduled to terminate on November 9th at noon.
So there will be a process for you all to come back to council and perhaps report on.
Oh, definitely.
Things that we've learned. And okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Sens.
I want to build on what Councilmember Daniel said, and I mean, right now we're focused on the water treatment, but how many other areas of the town are well overdue for process audit to ensure that, number one, our procedures and policies have kept up to date, and number two, the real key is, are we following them? So I guess, I know it's out of scope, but I think it's something we need to look at.
Thank you. We'll pass that statement on to town leadership. Any other discussion? Councilmember Cooper.
Appreciate the work that you've put in on this, and this has all come together really rapidly, and that's part of why I've got the question that I have is sometimes when things come together rapidly, we have to just move as quick as we can with the first company we find and that kind of thing. And I'm not saying the town does that, but how comfortable are you with the rates that we're paying and with the company's credentials?
Mayor Lewis, Councilmember Cooper, I will say I'm extremely comfortable with this. As I said, Mark and I both individually made phone calls to the other companies in Arizona that would possibly have this capability, and it really does come down to capacity. Secondary to that, CH2M Hill is an international corporation. They've been in business since 1946. They are known for this. We pulled multiple contracts from them in addition to having the availability of reference checks to be able to say, you know, have you really done this work? Yes, they have, and they've done it time and again. The team that we're pulling together, as I said, is coming from across the nation with all of that experience. In terms of the contract pricing itself, typically when you're in a short-term contract phase like this, a 2-month window is very short for this type of operation. Typically, these are longer-term contracts. And when I say longer-term, a year or more, the multiplier rate that's included in the scope is right at what some of these other contracts were for communities that were contracting for a year or more. So we're right within line with what we're going to get, not just with them, but I feel confident that it's comparable to other companies of this size that would be able to come in and do this. We have multiple people that are basically relocating to Arizona for 2 months of their life. And we also have additional teams that are coming in to do the portions of the compliance audit. So it's an extensive effort, and I will again reiterate that I do feel comfortable with the pricing as well as with certainly the credentials of the company.
Councilmember Petersen.
Mayor, I just want to make a comment. I'm normally in favor of, I think what Councilmember Cooper is implying, or at least the way I read it, is that we want to make sure we're getting the best deal and the best product, and so I think the best way to handle that is competition. But in this case, the only way we can do that is a competitive process that takes time, and in my opinion, this is most urgent. And I think if we've done our homework on this company, we know that they're capable, I think we need to move forward very expeditiously. We have a directive from the citizens directly given to have fluoride in our water. And right now, our facility is not even capable of ventilating that operation properly. And there's work that needs to be done to get it to where it needs to be so that we can follow that instruction. I just want to impress that our state constitution is what lays out that initiative process. And we've all taken an oath to that. And it's a very serious obligation, and we need to come within compliance as quickly as possible. So in this case, I do think it's appropriate to proceed with the company. We've checked their references, we've done the homework, but I don't think delay is acceptable.
Thank you. Please.
Oh. Nicole or Mark, either one. The people that were having come down and look at these, do they require to be certified operators?
We do have in the scope of the work that we were asking for, there was one specific request for a grade 4 operator license, which was specific to a regulatory requirement we have with the Department of Environmental Quality. In addition to that, almost everybody they're bringing on board has a variety of certifications. We do have resumes available if you're interested. But the certifications are, in most cases, other states, we have an operator who's applied for reciprocity in Arizona so that we're satisfying our requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And to the team, one of our core services is to provide clean, safe water, and please carry on. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. That's approved with a 7-0 vote. Thank you. We will do 17 and 18 together. And we did talk about 17 and 18 in the study session. Who wished to do some follow-up with it right now?
Well, it was pulled because we have a request.
Okay. All right. So, Vice Mayor, since we didn't have a council member, we have a request from a citizen, and I realize in a consent calendar, we normally don't have comments from the citizens, and yet we're a council that likes to hear from the citizens, and so I'll turn to my right and turn to my left. Are we okay in having, okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Sens, if you could proceed with Craig.
I think we just swore in this individual, Mayor.
We did.
Craig, would you come up, state your municipality of residence, and you'll be allowed 3 minutes to speak on these two items.
Mayor Lewis and Town Council, Craig Coulard. I live in Gilbert. First, I want to thank you for putting your faith and trust in me for the Human Relations Culture Arts Commission. Secondly, on number 17, the only thing that I was really concerned with is accountability for vendors who come in, get a contract, and then shortly thereafter request additional funds. And in this specific instance on 17, it's 13% that they're actually coming in, and I realize that they're exchanging or upgrading the sewer from an 8-inch line to a 15-inch line. But some of my concerns was, shouldn't that have been in the original RFP? It's a lot of money that we're asking to give to a contractor that just actually got the contract a few months ago. And I know there was some dispute and a lot of discussion on it initially for the contract, which I wasn't here for, but I did read quite a bit on. But those are my concerns. I'm neither for or against it. I just wanted to make sure that there was some accountability for the vendors and for the citizens who are paying this money for.
Craig, thank you very much. Edgar, if you could please come forward. And Craig has a couple of great questions and valid points, and I think you'll be able to help.
Mayor Lewis, council members, Edgar Medina, Capital Projects. Items number 17 and 18 are both change orders, one for the contractor, or the general contractor, and one for our construction manager. Accountability is certainly something that we take seriously. Specific to these council items, and even also on item number 33, these are both items, or the changes associated with this change order, the costs, are really for something that was added. It was something that the contractors did not bid on. We ultimately added a new sewer line to the project after we bid the project. So this is truly additional scope that was not part of the original bid. And that's true to the general contractor as well as the construction manager, as well as the previous change order that you approved for our design firm.
Mayor. Edgar, if you could comment, the 8-inch to 15-inch, there were reasons for that, and for the public, can you describe?
Mayor Lewis, council members, certainly. The 8-inch line, or actually the sewer line in general, is really to provide the adequate sewer capacity that's needed for that growth area. One of the main drivers is the MD Anderson Cancer Facility that's going to have future expansions. We don't have, it's not per se an increase in size. It's actually a new 15-inch line that we will be taking down Higley that currently does not exist. And it will be tying into an existing line on Guadalupe.
Was there some reason why we didn't note that maybe a year ago? Or was it just some of the expansion plans were announced and then we realized to be proactive we should go to a larger size?
Mayor Lewis, council members, yes, that's actually true. There wasn't, the current system was originally designed as the initial plans that were set for the MD Anderson. As the future phases and the future uses actually started increasing, the capacity or the sewer infrastructure requirements actually grew outside of what we could actually provide with the existing system.
Thank you. Councilmember Petersen?
Well, we've talked about this before because there was the planning phase of this that also had to change, and I think the bottom line was the change happened after our plans already started, and it was something out of our control. There was no way to predict it, either for us or the contractor involved. And so I very much respect Mr. Couilliard's comments. I very much feel the same way about it, but we've grilled them pretty heavily about this project already, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ray?
Edgar, when the town widens a road in front of a business or a piece of property, generally that cost will then be shared by the landowners, or occasionally will be shared by landowners, and they try to develop the building. And is that apply as well to things like this? Will this cost eventually get passed on to the different developments that go around there, or does this not follow that same procedure?
Mayor Lewis, Councilmember Ray, yes, this ultimately will be tied into system development fees, and also the construction costs for the offsite improvements primarily are we don't have right now a system development fee for transportation. So when we talk about improvement costs that we carry on to the property owners, those are primarily for the street lights, for the pavement, the hard structures, the grading, and so forth, the design. Those are passed on to the specific property owners individually, but this will be tied into some of the costs that we try to recoup from future developments.
Vice Mayor Sens?
I just wanted to go on record and commend Edgar and his team in talking about this. And it's a good news situation from the standpoint that Banner expansion far exceeded their original plans and what they shared with us. But Edgar has jumped ahead of the Higley Baseline project to put the sewer line in, so we don't put the sewer or improve the intersection, pave the roads, and then about 6 months later we come along and say, whoops, we got to put this 15-inch line in and dig up the new pavement. So Edgar, I want to commend you and your team for jumping out in front of this and doing what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve 17 and 18.
Councilmember Petersen had a comment first.
I was hoping to move it as amended, that the fund would be the wastewater, let me see if I can get my term right. Oh my. Wastewater Contingency Economic Development Reserve Fund.
Thank you. And I know that was mentioned on Tuesday. Councilmember Cooper?
Yeah, and you were on the phone on Tuesday, Councilmember Petersen, so would you mind just kind of describing your thinking on that?
My thinking on it is that here we have an unexpected expenditure related to some economic development that's taken place in our town. It's specific to wastewater. We have a reserve fund set aside in that particular area, I think, for this exact kind of thing. But so I feel like it fits that design, and so it would be logical to use it. That was my thinking.
Thank you. So we did not get a second on the motion yet, but we have an amendment, and I'll look to the two of you to help us proceed.
The proper way would for him to do a second. I shouldn't interrupt. I can move to amend after that.
Mayor, I'll second Vice Mayor Sens's motion,
Okay.
but also would like to make a statement as well after my second. Is that all right?
Please.
This is one of those instances where I think we could very easily go from either fund. But staff, who deals with the budget on a regular basis, and we talked about some of the reasons on Tuesday night why we wouldn't maybe go with the suggestion that was presented by Councilmember Petersen. Staff has chosen this particular fund, and I'm relying on their expert opinion and the logic that they've used behind that as administrators of our budget to determine that fund. And I think that there probably have been and will be opportunities for us to just, raise a little flag. And I think that you've raised a good point, Councilmember Petersen. But based on staff's recommendation and also just really the feeling that it really could come out of either, it's essentially, from what Don Irvine has told us, it's essentially the same bucket of money. And so I'm comfortable with the presentation that's provided to us from our staff.
Councilmember Daniels, I did some follow-up with our town manager, and he agrees it could be either way. He does actually like the thought of following Councilmember Petersen's proposal, and that has impacted me in the vote. So,
and he's left the room.
So, thank you for those comments. Are we ready to proceed? Councilmember Cooper?
Yeah, and I personally, I generally think that these economic development reserves ought to be reserved for projects that are new, that we are unanticipated, as opposed to one that we may have ended up doing this anyway. But in this case, really, and Don can correct me if I'm wrong, but the money is really coming from the same place, and I feel comfortable that if another project comes along that requires some of these funds that we would have otherwise spent out of economic development, that we can find those funds perhaps from this very same place and I know Edgar's saying no, but I think those funds are there, and so I'm comfortable either way as well.
Okay. Please.
I'm going to make my motion, but before that, I think Councilmember Cooper's comment really helps clarify my thinking, is that I don't want to use these as incentives. I know that if we use this up now, it eliminates some of our ability to use it as an incentive later. I like that idea. I'd rather have that not happening. So that's full transparency for you. But anyway, I move to amend the motion that the funds would come from Wastewater Contingency Economic Development Reserve Fund.
I second, but I do want to make a comment.
Please.
Because I agree, like I said on the study session, I asked the question, why do we identify these two funds? Because we do have the flexibility. If this particular fund does run out, we as a council can decide to designate dollars from another fund for some vice versa. So I'm okay.
And Mayor, I will just second the second, at least in saying that I hope as a council we do reserve the right, despite the preferences of at least one council member, to have discussions down the road if the need arises in drawing funds from this original fund as needed.
Manager Banger.
Mayor, members of the council, I think it's important, and the reason behind identifying funds even in a reserve capacity for economic development purposes is that with our 5-year plans in which we map out our capital improvement projects, economic development activity within our communities does not always fit neatly within that, and very often major employers such as Banner MD Anderson and Banner Medical Center will have expansion plans which then necessitate some improvements to some of our infrastructure, and it's good to have dollars that are identified for this need, that we understand this need exists and it's important to our community that we can draw from those dollars, but understanding that you can't always map this out or plan for it.
Thank you. So to the amendment, there's a second. And let's vote, please. That's approved with a 7-0 vote. Thank you. And now let's go to the original motion. And was there a second on that?
Yeah.
Oh, there, okay. And so let's see if in helping me vote, because we did approve the amendment.
Funds go from there.
It just says what fund we're taking.
It would be as amended at this point, so.
Okay. So please vote. Did you need us to clear again and do that? Okay, thank you. And our town clerk has that noted. Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 20. Who wished to speak on that, Vice Mayor Sens? Councilmember Petersen, the grant.
Mayor, I was trying not to give too many personal stories like anyone cares, but we were driving to Thatcher, where my wife's family lives. Anyway, I was reading this item on the drive.
While you were driving?
No, she's driving, I'm reading. And it breaks my heart that we continue to ask the federal government for money. When they're so bankrupt, it's out of control. And if it's a critical thing that we cannot do without, it's very highly urgent or something, and we're not encouraging continued dependency on one-time revenue for ongoing expense. There's a lot of things to rule out, reasons to ask, and this falls into a lot of those reasons. I don't think these are critical, urgent things. Do they have some importance? Of course they do. If the goal is just to speed up how quickly they happen, and they're not critical right now, here today, I think we can wait for them and try and fund them ourselves rather than ask for more money from the federal government. So I just think we need to get off of the federal funding. They've got their own problems. They need to correct their ship. Sure, I know that's their responsibility, but we shouldn't be asking. So thanks.
Councilmember Daniels.
This is actually one of the few funded mandates that the federal government, it's the federal government that have issued the air quality standards. We buy PM10 street sweepers and I think we've purchased 10 or 11 with air quality mitigation funds. This is a mandate by the federal government, and this is one of the few funded mandates, which we have a lot of unfunded mandates that are directed to us by both the state and the federal government. This is a funded mandate, and so I actually appreciate the fact that once they're giving us a requirement, that they're also willing to say, and by the way, because we have instituted this requirement, we are also providing some of the funds, and they do not provide all of it. We pay for the individuals to run the street sweepers through our general fund and through the streets fund. And so I hear what you're saying. I have rejected several federal grants myself here since I've been on the council, and I hear what you're saying, but I also see this as being a funded mandate. The federal government has issued the standard. We are complying with the standard. If your suggestion is that we do not comply with the standard, then I think that's a whole nother policy discussion we should probably have at the council level. But from what I can tell, this is our effort to comply with federal law.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the grant as proposed to us by staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote. That is approved with a 4-3 vote. Thank you. That completes the consent calendar. We move to the public hearing. Items 31 through 37 will be heard at one public hearing, at which time anyone wishing to comment on a public hearing item may do so. Comments will be heard from those in support of or in opposition to an item. In order to, Vice Mayor Sens, do we have requests on 31 through 37 to speak?
No, we do not, Mayor.
Okay. I will cease reading, and let me just turn to the council before I would open the public hearing items. Are there some of the items that council members would like to have presentations on 31 through 37? Victor. 35. Okay, and 38 and 40 are not public hearings, so just 35. 35. So I would take that as 31 through 34, and 36 and 37, we would be ready to proceed. Okay. I will open the public hearing on agenda items 31 through 34 and 36 and 37. And I will close the public hearing on items 31 through 34 and 35 through 37.
There is no item 31 unless it was on the addendum, I don't believe.
Thank you. Because it was on the agenda, I assume I'm okay that I opened and closed it. And now, as far as a vote, we could focus on 32, 33, 34, and 36 and 37.
Move to approve.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote. Thank you. I open the public hearing on agenda item 35. And would we wish to have an overview and before we have discussion? Okay, Melanie, please.
Mayor, council members. Item 35 relates to the fees for special events. We're asking for approval of the resolution to establish event fees. Specifically, we have identified some special event locations, some site areas, including the municipal lawn. Currently, that has been utilized as a special event area with no fees associated with it. We'd like to have that instituted in order to help do some cost recovery and for use of that space. In addition, we have identified the fact that athletic fields are not the best special event areas, and the only fees that we have had associated in the past are based on athletic fees at $7 an hour. Therefore, we have gone through and looked at where it would be appropriate to host special events and identified those areas with fees associated with that. And I'm not sure what other information you'd be interested in looking at. I know we covered a lot of the information at the retreat, so I am happy to answer any questions you have about specifics.
Councilmember Daniels.
One quick question, Melanie. What's the effective date of these fees?
My understanding is once the resolution is passed, it's 30 days after.
Okay, so if there's someone that's already reserved a specific site, are we going like over the next, I don't know, through the end of the year? Or how will you, I guess, handle those situations?
Mayor, Councilmember Daniels, we have been talking with all of our current event promoters, activities that have been planning to come in for quite some time, indicating that these were our proposed fees. We had them, provided to them with the understanding that at some point these may come into effect. So we've actually priced out the bulk of the events with these prices. However, things that are happening in the next week or two, obviously that's not identified. If their event does happen, and is scheduled for after when the 30 days comes in effect, then the fees would be applied. But we have definitely worked with everyone to provide that information.
And I appreciate that because I think sometimes we might be brought into a situation if there were some surprises. And so as much education as we can do between now and when this ordinance comes into effect, that'd be great. Not ordinance, fee structure.
Thank you. Other discussion? Councilmember Petersen.
Mayor, one of the things that I wanted to look at in more detail was the percentage of cost recovery on each of these. And I appreciate Melanie's efforts to give us at least some thinking behind each of the fees. But I still think we need to see the cost recovery percentages so that I'm going to be one of those guys that I want pretty much 100% cost recovery on anything that's not a basic individual right, because otherwise you're taking from somebody else to enjoy whatever it is you want to do. But regardless of my position, I think all of us, it would be helpful to know what that percentage is, because we may be on one item in favor of more subsidy than on other items, but we can't really make that decision without that tool. So I've spoken with Melanie, and there's already efforts underway to quantify some of these things related to all the lines of service and how cost recovered are we, how cost recovered should we be. And so I understand they're already working on that, and I respect that process, and I realize it takes time. I spoke with her, and if everyone else is okay, November 15th could be a date, and it's a goal, and if there needs to be adjustments, staff could tell us. But it's a date where we have a council meeting that we could potentially have some of that information available so we can take another look at it at that point. So as a condition of, not that everyone has to listen to me, but I would be in favor of this if we were able to set that date. So I don't know what others are thinking on that.
Thank you. And Melanie, in the study session, I think there was an email you were sending to the council that had different colors.
Mayor, council members, my understanding is what you received in your packet addendum, it was there, but it didn't come in color. So, or it wasn't, for some reason, the viewable that you received was not in color, but it is part of your packet that you did receive.
Okay. So if we did not receive an email, that's the answer for that. Other discussion? So Councilmember Petersen, that your vote, not that you're making an amendment to it, but you're just saying that you would prefer to have further discussion on this on November 15th. And Melanie, is that a time frame, hearing that there's flexibility if you need a little more time, but is that a time frame you think you can meet that November 15th date?
Mayor, council members, yes, and speaking with Nicole, she is looking at that project with, looking at lines of service and cost recovery. We anticipate at that date that we should have most of the staff data prepared in order to give an overview at that time of some of the basic information.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that. Mayor, I have one other comment. There is one amendment I'm looking for. I don't know how others feel, but I would like to eliminate Category 1 and just have Category 2 apply to everyone in the fees. Again, this is that issue where we're going to treat the nonprofits differently than everyone else. First of all, I don't know how a private citizen would line up. I don't know what category they'd fall into. The second issue is there's nothing wrong with making a profit. In the example I gave earlier, Barnes & Noble was able to give to the college 5 times what they were able to do on their own. And keep in mind, they made a profit at the same time and paid all their employees at the same time. How is that all possible? It's called efficiency. And competition makes us efficient, and it actually delivers to us the highest possible standard of living. We all win. It's a good way to go. So I do not want to be in the business of encouraging people to be only nonprofits if they want to have events in Gilbert. I want everyone to be treated the same, and profits are an honorable thing in a free market where no one is forced, neither the buyer or the seller. So I would like to eliminate that category. That's my main amendment. I don't know what others think.
Other discussion, feelings on Category 1 and Category 2? And in summary for the public, Category 1, it's a little bit less. I mean, there's still, for example, Category 1, $300 per day versus $375 per day, and that looks similar on down with other items. But Councilmember Ray?
Question is, tell us a little bit about Category 1 and 2, nonprofit versus profit, et cetera, and why town staff and Parks and Rec Board and others agreed to this and are recommending this. How does this compare to Chandler, Mesa, other municipalities, and how they work?
Mayor, Councilmember Ray, this is an industry standard within our business, is that you typically have 2 levels of categories because you are looking at the commercial provider running a business on town-owned property, which is supported by your residents, in looking at trying to recover. Again, it's hard, I can't tell you it's 100% cost recovery, it's not, but to get, because they're running more of a business at that. Nonprofits, although they are a business, are doing it for different reasons typically. So the business standard has generally been to have the 2 categories. A private citizen is typically within the nonprofit, and the differentiation with these 2 categories, you will only see it applied to the site rental fees. Everything else when it comes to recovering staff costs of time for police, fire, all the fees do stay exactly the same for both organizations. So the difference is applied within the actual site rental space itself. We would be unique if we eliminated the category. We certainly can do that and determine if you'd like to just stay with category 2, or we wouldn't be naming the category. At that point, it would just be special event fees. Again, over time, as we're looking at our lines of service and cost recovery, we will be looking at our indoor fees, our outdoor fees, and right now there are categories applied to those as well, so that if the premise is taken here, we would then be looking at our other fees as well, bringing it forward, whether or not you, and that comes into the non-resident, resident rates. That's kind of the same premise that you identify the two different fee structures.
Councilmember Ray?
2 follow-up questions, Melanie, and thanks again for the hard work on this, you and staff and the Parks and Rec Board. Has the town considered, and it could be in there, I just didn't see it, I believe that Chandler, when they talk about nonprofits and the costs for their nonprofits, their nonprofits are Chandler-based nonprofits only. Have we thought about doing Gilbert-based nonprofits only?
Mayor, Councilmember Ray, we did look at and try to discuss whether or not Gilbert nonprofit. The thing is, there aren't that many nonprofits that are strictly based within the town. They're sometimes they're national nonprofits, but they're also trying to be a regional, base. They're not really focused on just solidifying, especially when you look at special events. When you're looking at that type of operation and bringing in a special event and having a program, they're not usually looking to just, you could say they're based in Gilbert, but you're looking sometimes at P.O. Box, that have a Gilbert address. It's not necessarily serving just Gilbert, though.
Okay. And the last question is, and I should have asked you beforehand, what would you guess is the ratio of nonprofits versus for-profits that use the town facilities?
Mayor, Councilmember Ray, I don't think I have that number off the top of my head. I am not aware. I know we list kind of some of the events that have been conducted in Gilbert. So let me look at that really quick and see if I can give you Mayor, council members, at this point, I would say out of the very large events that are conducted, it's probably half and half.
Thank you, Melanie.
How many, as you said, Category 1 would be individual citizens, not a business, not a nonprofit, but they would also fall in Category 1? Are there many citizens that would make requests?
Mayor, council members, in terms of conducting an extremely large special event that falls into this category, you're not typically going to have just an individual citizen. It's generally an organization that's coming forward to, produce an event. Some individuals may start with a smaller activity, and they may grow it over time. But typically, you're looking at a formal organization that conducts the bulk of the special events.
Thank you. Councilmember Cook?
Could we split the cost in half and have a single category where we take Category 1, Category 2, and just find the medium there, and would that work?
Mayor, Councilmember Cook, that's at the discretion of council. We've based this on the industry standard in comparison to the surrounding municipalities and what is being offered. And to be competitive, we feel in the market and the standard is where nonprofits look as to the best opportunity and location to present their events. However, we are more than happy to take your direction.
Let me say to the 7 of us, Councilmember Petersen brought up some good points, valid, market, and so forth, but all of a sudden I'm hearing you say several times, professional standards, this is common. I'm not qualified to be making changes from the dais to the detailed level. I think we're getting away from policy myself. I would entertain a motion, keeping Category 1 and Category 2 the same.
Mayor Lewis, I move to approve the agenda item 35 as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Mayor?
Please.
Move to amend.
Okay.
To eliminate Category 1 and rename the Category 2 as special event fees.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Please vote. That amendment does not pass. And there was a motion and a second, I believe. So please vote on that original motion. And that passes with a 7-0 vote. Thank you. Administrative items. I do see 39, which is the boards, commissions, and committees, but the bulk of it would be 38 and 40, talking about the utility bills. But let me, for sake of the council, 38A was added as the Regulatory Reduction Commission, and I understand that there's been a request to move to continue. Is that correct? Councilmember Petersen?
That may be coming from me, Mayor. I really believe, and I won't name names, I don't want to embarrass anyone, and I don't think it was intentional, but I heard at least a couple council members make some indication about how they think the money should be used. That is not within the scope of this agenda.
That's 38A is what I asked about. That.
Sorry, Mayor.
So that is the Regulatory Reduction Commission, which I was told from town leadership there's been a request to move to continue.
I can't comment on that one, Mayor. I was just confused. I apologize. I pushed really hard for this, as everyone knows, in that email I sent out. And I was concerned at one point whether or not some of the, because I know there are some ideas in the works right now to address this issue. I was concerned that the scope was too narrow. In doing research, the scope being considered is right along lines with what I would like to see. That being the case, I will honor that process and let it play out. And I think it's the first meeting in October. So what I'd like to do is move to continue this to the first regular or special session in October for follow-up discussion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Please vote. Thank you. And Councilmember Petersen, I think that was a good segue into 40 and 38. As we talked about in the study session, the utility bill discussion of having advertisements inserted, that 40 was the preference to make sure that we were comfortable with the policy. 38 was then more the implementation. Councilmember Petersen did bring up a good point that I know there has been discussion about also the council being able to see the full picture, and what has not been decided yet is if we did approve this, where would the funds go? And Councilmember Petersen, is that a summary of what you just said?
Yeah, I'll just finish my statement so that it's not hanging out there. But the point is, I heard a couple people make some indication about where the money should be spent, and I don't fault them for it. It's just natural to want to talk about that in the overall decision on whether or not this is a good idea at all. I will tell you that if it's used one way, I'm not in favor of this. If it's used another way, I am. And so I'm not saying I'll hold it up, because I know that conversation will have to take place, but I'd rather it took place all at the same time. So that was my comment.
Councilmember Petersen, why don't you continue? That's an interesting piece of feedback that would be useful for discussion. You would be in favor of it this way, or this way you wouldn't be, so please.
The problem is I can't tell you. I can't tell you how I want the money to be used, because it's not in scope of the agenda. That's the problem. So.
Okay. To our legal staff, do we have any flexibility to have that discussion?
I want to be sure I understand the question. We've got a policy on advertising inserts and utility bills. And the discussion that's under discussion is whether or not is what you spend the proceeds on. I wasn't here on Tuesday, so I don't know if there was a discussion about this, but I would have said that you could have included that within this policy if somebody had wanted to. Is that different from what you were told on Tuesday? Oh, good.
No, I think some of that, and I stand to be corrected, but I think some of that was discussed, and we left the study session on Tuesday with that on our mind, and I think that those are some discussions that then were presented to town leadership saying it would help as we discuss 40 and 38, to have that discussion about if we did approve it, where the funds would go. And so what you're saying is if we include that more from a policy perspective, that is acceptable to talk about.
I'm not troubled by it. I mean, it's close enough for me. I think it's close enough.
Okay. And Councilmember Ray, I saw your hand, please.
I think it would be appropriate to focus on item 40 first, and then if we approve that policy, then 38's an option. If 40 is not approved, then 38's not an option. And so I think that we should focus on 40 first, which has nothing to do with revenues.
Yeah, then that's where I was. I was actually assuming you were going to do that on 40.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify, though. I think 40 is the place to have the discussion about what the funds will be used for.
That's correct.
And so the 38 is the implementation. 38 is the contract with a provider. So 40 is the policy place, in my opinion. And I'll agree with Councilmember Petersen up to the point where I know we're going to disagree in a minute. But I can't approve 40 without having the answer to that other question. And that's where we'll diverge probably on the use of the funds. But that's kind of my feel. And I do have some other comments on 40, but I just wanted to clarify that.
In listening to these comments, let's go to 40 and not start with the funds. Let's start with, and we did have this discussion in the study session about some minor changes that might be suggested. And I think that under,
You want to go from one section down, one section Tuesday?
well, let me just, the discussion on Tuesday, we had some dialogue about the following categories of advertising shall not be accepted. And I think for citizens, this is a concern about the legal ramifications, the liabilities, and so forth. And many comments have been made that if we did do advertising, that we would want to make sure it stays family friendly, that there wouldn't be something that would be offensive. And so this first section is an attempt to do that. And so, Susan, we had some discussion on that. And I don't know, back to Tuesday, did we have specifics that we wanted to have added? I do know to town leadership that one comment that was made is to include medical marijuana. That would be something that would be added to this section. Councilmember Cook, were there other items?
Well, what I'd like to talk about is really the item 1B. I know that we have in our code businesses that can sell alcohol, that can sell tobacco, and could provide and sell firearms in Gilbert. I'm not in favor of restricting those businesses for not having the ability to provide advertisement. I think we should be fair to all businesses. If we allow them to do business in Gilbert, and they do advertise on their own, that we should allow those same businesses that we've invited to be, a business, partner here in Gilbert, the opportunity to potentially advertise in, the utility billing, based upon obviously, the other discernments of how that material is.
Susan, one more feedback to Tuesday. When that same line was discussed, there was an example of a restaurant that would sell alcohol. And so as a council, we said that would be just fine for the restaurant to advertise. To clarify with Councilmember Cook, let's say that the whole advertisement from the restaurant is related to something that's listed there. You would be okay with that?
Again, I think if they want to advertise alcohol, I think that's okay.
Other comments?
I agree with your comments earlier, Mayor, about the family friendly, and the fact that this is I know we're going to put a comment in there that says the town doesn't sanction any of these businesses, and that's fine. But when people are opening up their town utility bill, I think there will be a great number of residents that, first of all, don't like to get this. I already stated my comments on that on Tuesday. But secondly, that do not want to see this kind of these kind of advertisements in this advertising channel. There are other places that these businesses can go for that. And we're starting something new here. I don't think we need to offend or anger a bunch of people right out of the gate. And so I would definitely add the medical marijuana dispensaries on there as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Petersen.
Mayor, I agree with Councilmember Cook on this. Here's the deal. Advertisers aren't going to waste their money and their efforts on advertising things people don't want. Our community is mostly not going to want some of these things. Okay, so they probably won't get advertised. But there will be some things that are representative of the community as a whole, and I think they have a right to be able to see those products and get a coupon for it and purchase them. So I think the free market's going to manage whether or not it's representative of the community or not on its own. I would agree that I don't want anyone to open it up and be shocked or feel like their eyes were burned by anything they see. So my thoughts on this would be to remove B and revise G so that it says advertising that includes language or images which are obscene, vulgar, or profane. I think if we do that, then other than just plain offending people by an image or something they read, I think we've allowed the free market to do its thing. So,
other comments?
And I think another option, going back to Councilmember Cooper's, I mean, I talked to my neighbors and they don't want these inserts anyways. There should be an opt-out option for both email or by mail so that they don't need to see the mailing, and we'll let the public decide if they want to see advertisements in their billing. So I think we need to include an opt-out feature in this.
Thank you. Leslie?
Mayor and Council, there will be an opportunity for customers to opt out if they so wish. In conversations that I've had with Share My Stamp, that is something that we would be able to provide to them as information for customers who do not wish to either receive the paper coupons or the attachments in the emails.
Thank you. Done? Other comments?
Quick question, Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry. Did you Councilmember Cook, do you feel the same way about tobacco products as well? So alcohol or tobacco, you're fine?
Again, I think it was a business that is in our city code that we allowed to come in to Gilbert to do business. I think we should allow all businesses the opportunity to advertise within the, the process here. Because to me, it's...
And so any business that has a business license or is registered with the town should be allowed to advertise regardless of their product. Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking that if we allow them in Gilbert, why would we restrict them?
I disagree with that, specifically because there are a lot of businesses that I don't feel like should have the right to advertise to my family. I feel very strongly about that. There are lots of businesses in Gilbert. We have certain zoning codes for certain types of businesses in order to keep them off of Gilbert Road and in order to create a family-friendly environment in our community. I feel very strongly about that. There's a purpose that you are not allowed to advertise tobacco on television, on any television station. I think on some cable stations you probably still can, but on any network television station you cannot advertise tobacco. I feel like that is an acceptable process for the town to continue to follow. I support this code as it's stated. We have a certain standard to uphold in our community, And I do feel strongly about that. I would never prohibit someone from purchasing what they wanted to, but as far as what is directly mailed to our customers, I think we do have the ability to control that through this policy. And I hear what you're saying about the private or the free market and letting the free market decide, but we have zoning codes, zoning requirements in our community for a purpose. And I think that that's along those same lines. This policy can also help us to protect our citizens and our families and our town.
Councilmember Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with different comments that were made. I'm all about free speech and being able to display, generally speaking, what you think is appropriate for you. My concern is two or threefold. One, like Councilmember Daniels said, there's other, I assume, state and federal laws that prohibit some of these things. And I would hate to, one, start allowing things that are prohibited under other regulations. Two, I think that tobacco, firearms, and alcohol are different than the rest of the normally commercialized products in that they are still illegal to large groups of population. Some individuals can buy firearms, some can buy tobacco, and some can't. So if you have a homeowner who's 18, 19, or 20, they still can't go buy alcohol. And so why would we be sending them advertisements for something that's illegal for them to do? And so I think that's what separates those from many other products. And I agree with Councilman Petersen that it's unlikely that someone's going to spend money to mail to homes that they don't think they'll get a good return on their investment. But I also think that we need to make sure that, one, we follow the example and the other laws that exist out there. But furthermore, when there are items that are against the law for certain people to have, that we don't then create the ability or the process for them to get solicited for that. When we have limited control at that point on what it says. The other comment towards Councilman Petersen's comment about the vulgar and obscene and profane, I don't like that idea either, to merge subsection G, because then it's all what is vulgar, what is obscene. And I think that once you leave that up to interpretation, we're going to end up fighting somebody in court, and no one wins except for the attorneys who make money off of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Cooper had mentioned medical marijuana. The two of you would be okay including that? And, okay. Councilmember Petersen?
I'll just make one last comment, but first of all, Councilmember Daniels is correct. Actually, no one has a right to advertise through the utilities. No one does. That's why it hasn't happened. Until now, we're considering it. So no one has that right. That's correct. But we're going to allow some people and not others. That's where we get the rub for me. We're going to pick the winners and losers. And I would ask, what value system are we going to use to do that? Is it going to be fair? Is it going to represent the average person? Well, how are we going to do that? So I'm concerned with that. I'm concerned with the notion that we would be arbitrary and capricious on this. There's no question in my mind, there's certain products here that I absolutely do not use and will not use, and nor ever have I used. But that's me. And I just want to make it clear this is my effort not to be arbitrary and capricious, but to let people have their own values and let the free market do its thing. So,
Councilmember Cooper?
I think I've heard and said everything that I would want to say on this item, and other than the fact that this is a proven policy in other communities, and if there are residents that really want to get these kind of advertisements, they're welcome to come down here and in the council meeting encourage us to include these in the future. I don't see any reason to start from the get-go with them, so that they have their right to request that. I did want to talk about 4A. I mentioned it the other night. I don't know that it's a strong point, but I do want to just get the feel, because my thought is this is to help Gilbert businesses, and there are a lot of national and regional institutions that do business in Gilbert that aren't based here, and some of them don't even have employees here. They're just offering services, and they might swing in and do something and leave. And so I just wanted to throw that out for discussion and just just see what the pleasure of the council.
Do you 4A, for the public, it says the advertiser shall be located in Gilbert or do business in Gilbert. Do you support that statement?
I'd like it to have a period after. I'd just like it to say the advertiser shall be located in Gilbert. But that may have unintended consequences, but that's the feel of the kind of the principle behind it, I thought. So,
Mayor.
Vice Mayor Sens?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I made a comment the other night, and I would still like to see it in here. If we're going to encourage businesses that operate in Gilbert to register with the town, have a business license, that ought to be one of the criteria, that we only open it up to Gilbert businesses that are registered with the town.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Petersen?
I asked some questions about this myself, and from what I understand, if they're doing business in Gilbert in the sense that it's the consumption, or there would be some kind of a tax on it that's in Gilbert, there's some net benefit to the town, revenues in one way or another. That was kind of what was being looked at. But if there's further clarification on that, I think we could all use to hear that what that means.
Susan, do you have any help on that 4A? I know in talking to the city of Mesa, that's probably the same language they have, and there must have been a purpose for it, but
No. Leslie, do you have any background on 4A? I really didn't.
Yeah. Mayor, Councilman Petersen, for the city of Mesa, they do restrict it to businesses that are located in the city of Mesa. Ours was a little bit broader, and it was to open it up a little bit more for businesses that performed a service in the city of Gilbert, in which we would most likely still be able to get some kind of a sales tax from that. We can certainly go ahead and change the language and just restrict it to businesses in Gilbert, and especially to those that make sure that they do have a business license with us.
thank you, that's very helpful. So we could take off that last part, put a period, and then be open to make a change in the future if it wasn't working out.
Yes.
Could I ask a question? There's a difference between being located in Gilbert and having a business license.
Sure, thank you. So the Vice Mayor sense that request is something that we can also consider in the verbiage. Councilmember Cooper?
My thought is to align this with the concept of Shop Gilbert. And so if they are located in Gilbert, they have employees in Gilbert, and some of them will have sales tax, others are services or whatever, but they're providing an economic benefit in Gilbert. The tax, I understand the tax thing about maybe a company doing business here will generate a little bit of revenues for us, but again, there are many, many channels that people can advertise in, and if we're going to have our own channel, it ought to be in alignment with our Shop Gilbert campaign, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And so to Vice Mayor Sense's comment about having a business license or locating Gilbert, how do you feel about that?
I'm trying to recall that discussion, but my preference is tonight is located in Gilbert. And it could be a national chain. It's nothing wrong with that. But if they're located in Gilbert and they are doing business here, employing people, they will have a business license. But I also recall in the business license conversation that a company that may be located out of town but does some business in Gilbert would have to have one of those licenses. I can't remember if we went that route. So,
Councilmember Petersen?
Yeah, our company has a license in Gilbert, a license in Mesa, a license in Apache Junction, so on and so forth. So I do think, though, that this can have unintended consequences located in Gilbert. You can have someone right on the boundary line who does all their business in another town, employs all the people in another town, and you're not accomplishing your purpose. I actually think Councilmember Sense's idea is probably the best, because it will most, if you do who's registered in Gilbert, it incentivizes them to register, for one. For two, it captures, I think, more of the spirit of what's being done here. So that may be the way to go.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, if I could provide some clarification, my understanding was that a business has to be in Gilbert to receive a business license. If they're outside of Gilbert, they are not required to have a business license with us, even if they do business within the town. I did ask that question of Susan Thompson when that question was raised earlier.
But that, to Councilmember Cooper, that would accomplish your same purpose.
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay. So we're 4A, we have some language that talks about having a business license. What other comments in this policy section? Councilmember Petersen.
One last one. I would like to make the opt-out. Of course, this is a policy that may be broader than just, this is inserts in municipal. Okay, this would work. So the opt-out, I would like to have that as a policy, that we clearly say that the people receiving have the ability to opt out. So that would be something I'd like to ask for.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilmember Ray?
One comment, Leslie, about the opt-out. I know you said that it's doable. Does it change the cost at all, and or the revenue, however you want to look at that number? But does that change the numbers at all by allowing people to opt out?
Mayor, Councilman Ray, it potentially would change the revenue if we have a number of customers that did opt out and the advertisers saw that the number of customers receiving the coupons was continuing to decrease. Obviously, that would decrease the revenue.
But there's no cost associated with somebody opting out? No direct cost?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have 3 changes we would make to the policy. So I'm about ready to talk about revenue source. Before we do that, is there anything else? So Councilmember Petersen, when you brought up the revenue source, and we've been given approval to talk about it on this 40, please.
Okay, so I hinted at this, not knowing if I could actually talk about it in the study session. I'm glad that we can. I believe that it is inappropriate to use these funds anywhere outside of the utilities, because it is the utilities that make this revenue possible. As much as I know there's some great things we'd like to do with it, I just don't think it's appropriate. It just doesn't make sense. I don't think it's fair. So I would like to see this dedicated to, in my perfect world, what happens is they get a credit proportionate to what the revenue was generated for them. It might be 15 cents. I've done the math. I think it was something like that, 15 cents. But they would get that if they choose to keep the advertising. If they opt out, they would lose that credit. But what I'd like to see happen is they would go to a web page where it would say, are you sure you want to opt out? You'll lose your credit. If they go forward, then you could say, did you also know you can keep your advertising and donate your credit to neighbor? And furthermore, did you know you could get an even larger credit by going electronic billing? And that would be like 35 cents. By the way, that's huge. But anyway, I would like to see this help create incentives that naturally make our utilities more efficient, which everybody wins from. So,
Vice Mayor Sens?
We just had a milestone. Councilmember Petersen and I agreed on one thing, and now we're going to disagree again. I don't see, I mean, we're using the billing as a vehicle. The utility, the water, the solid waste, any of those are not doing any effort to generate this revenue. So I do not see the connection between the utility and the revenue.
Mayor, can we ask Dawn Irvine to comment on, because I did ask her that same question, wondering, and I'd just like clarification from her point of view on an accounting perspective or budget perspective.
Dawn, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm Dawn Irvine, Budget Manager here for the town. The accounting perspective, I think we could also look to our accounting professionals also here in the office. But from the budget perspective, it is entirely appropriate from the budget perspective for those revenues to be utilized for whatever purpose council would desire. It is a general revenue source. When we look to our enterprise funds, those revenues need to be recovered to the extent of the cost of the service. So the cost of providing water needs to be recovered through those water rates, for example. There's not necessarily a direct correlation between the advertising revenues and the cost of providing water service, to the extent that it's not costing us more to send out those those advertisements along with the bills.
Thank you. Councilmember Petersen.
This is probably my last comment on this. Who knows, right? Here's the deal. There's postage that's paid by the utility customers. These advertising companies are getting free postage. And it is paid by somebody, and it's paid by the utility customers. So that's one example of something. Now, I understand we're not creating a new cost for the customers, but it's still something they're paying for that somebody else is now benefiting from. Again, there's real consideration received by the advertising companies, and it's provided by the utility customers.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. So, an alliance has been formed. So we have 3 suggestions that would be made to the policy. And I know in prior discussions there have been an assumption. In fact, when this first came up, by way of background, this was a Citizen Budget Committee item saying City of Mesa is doing this as a revenue source. Why don't we consider it? That's where the idea first came up, and it was always, it was from that point tied to helping the nonprofits. I mean, that's why I think this is pursued over the last couple of years. And so I would say that some of the discussions about the utility bill inserts with the advertisement have been citizens that have been saying that would be a great way to support the nonprofits. And we did talk about this, about the ability to use the funds for the nonprofits. Don, can you comment on that? Is there any concern that you would have with the ability to do that?
Mayor, thank you. No, I don't have any personal concern with that. Again, because this could be used as a general revenue source, it would be at the pleasure of the mayor and council.
Okay, thank you. And I know Tucson is another city that's doing this, and we haven't had a lot of dialogue with them, but City of Mesa, we did learn since Tuesday that they are using their funds to cover the postage for a community newsletter that goes out to citizens. Is that correct?
Mayor, they actually use the funds received to cover the printing costs for their open line newsletter that goes out to the customers every other month, and also for other advertisements for departments, internal departments that goes out to the customer, and in some administrative costs. So it just covers printing and administrative costs. It doesn't cover any postage.
Right. And I think Councilmember Petersen, they're not giving the 15 cents back to the customers. They're using it for other resources, but they're doing it to say what could we do to benefit citizens, and so I think that if it were used for nonprofits, that's still a solid argument that a lot of citizens would be very supportive of. Not 100%, but I think in representing a lot of the citizens that they've made that assumption based on our discussions, and so I would certainly want to bring that out. That to me, we've got the 3 items down for the policy, and then the 4th one would be just how to use the funds. And so I would say it's either to, as Councilmember Petersen said, possibly finding another source, or the assumption that has been made, and citizens have expressed support, many have, to be helpful for the nonprofits. So those are the 4 items. If someone wants to put them into a motion.
Mayor, I actually want to make one comment. I know you're hoping to move us along, and I appreciate that. I briefly stated this the other night. I support the notion of the funding going to the nonprofits, but we've made a commitment as far as funding these nonprofits, and so I have just the slight reservation that tying nonprofit funding to a contractual revenue source like this could, if the revenues don't come in as anticipated, could put us in a bad position. And so I just want to make sure that, if I support this, it's because I know that we've made a commitment to a funding plan out of the general fund if necessary. And so while this might support and even decrease the requirements out of the general fund, if for some reason the revenues out of this do not produce, or there aren't enough revenues produced, that it impacts this other plan that we have, then I'll have some challenges. So I hope that we're still committed to that other plan as necessary.
Thank you. Councilmember Ray?
In response to Councilmember Cooper, the subcommittee on nonprofits in a month or so, I can't remember the exact date, are going to talk about that very issue, because we've set out the idea as a council that there's the drop-down levels over the next few years for nonprofits to the point where there's zero general fund monies. The subcommittee is going to discuss whether or not this money here would be in addition to general fund, or if it would replace a portion of the general fund. And so that is going to be discussed in more detail, where that committed monies would come from. But I expect, at least from me, that we would continue with that commitment of money regardless of where it came from, whether it's general fund and a portion of this, or just this, or however it works itself out.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Cook?
Do we have a hardship fund for families that can't pay for utilities? I mean, how does that work?
Mayor, Councilmember Cook, the town does not have anything like that. We normally refer customers to the CAP program or to the Salvation Army or St. Anne's.
Okay. So there's 4 items. Would someone like to put them into a motion?
I'm thinking, why not we just put it there?
The 4 items were on 1B to add medical marijuana, 4A to be specific by saying a business license, adding the opt-out option, and then the revenue source.
Mayor, I move to approve item 40 as you stated with those conditions.
And the revenue source being nonprofits?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. That's approved with a 6-1 vote. We move to agenda item 38. As Leslie pointed out in our study session, this is a, should I say, a 4-month time period? Let's see, September, 4.5. So talk to us about that. It's to get the process started, and then would we be doing an RFP after we see how it goes?
Mayor and Council, this is, Share My Stamp is currently a company that works with the company that currently prints our utility billing statements, so they would be able to jump into this right away, and we would be able to kind of see how this program works. I am currently in the process of writing an RFP for our print and mail process, and the contract ends January 31st. So with the approval now of advertising inserts, I will be adding that into our print and mail contract, and we'll be able to then go ahead and open that up after January 31st.
Thank you. Questions or comments on that? Vice Mayor Sens.
Yeah, Mayor, I guess the one thing, initially I was kind of on the fence on this whole process, but once, and I probably should have said this on 40, but with the opt-out, I think the people now have a choice, and I like the short term, and then we can look at it from the long term. So I'm in support of 38.
Councilmember Ray?
Out of curiosity, Leslie, Share My Stamp, where are they located?
In Phoenix.
Okay. And in the, this is out of scope, never mind.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sens's comment, does that lead us to a motion?
Move to approve item 38.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote. That's approved with a 6-1 vote. Thank you. We move to agenda item 39, which is board, commissions, and committee updates. Vice Mayor Sens?
I'll do one real quick on Planning Commission. Unfortunately, over the last 2 months, we've had 2 resignations, both of them for moving out of the town of Gilbert. So we have advertised, and we've got some interviews scheduled. So we will be filling up those slots on the Planning Commission. Last night, they voted on their chair and vice chair, And the new chair is Jennifer Whitman, and the vice chair is Bridget Petersen.
Thank you. Other reports? Councilmember Cook.
All right, I'm going to pass out to the council here. This is from the HR CAP team. This is to announce the celebration of life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Day on January 21st. It'll be held at the Redemption Church here in Gilbert. Live music, food, speakers, and the event will be from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. So the public is invited, and they asked us if we can come and support it.
Thank you. Other updates? Okay, we move to agenda item 41, future meetings. Note that our next study session will be held in South Gilbert. I know we're looking forward to that. And that will begin at 5 p.m. instead of 4 p.m. on Tuesday, the 18th. I should also mention as a reminder to us that to our town clerk, we have posted a special meeting for next Tuesday at 4:45 p.m. So, Kathy, you may already know this, but is it helpful to ask who will be physically here and who will be calling in, or do you know that?
Mayor Lewis, I can send out instructions for those who want to dial in. A maximum of 6 can dial in.
Okay. I know 3 of us will be here for a subcommittee meeting at 5, so we should be okay. If you could let, for planning purposes, if you can let Kathy know whether or not you'll be physically here or if you'll be calling in. And I might just add on a future meeting, I think this is a great compliment to Gilbert that there's a Canada-Arizona Business Council. They meet in different parts of the valley. And tomorrow, Gilbert is hosting the group. And it's a morning event. We are pleased from an economic development standpoint to be hosting about 70 executives from the valley, and we'll give a future report on that if there's items that are newsworthy. Let's go to agenda item 42, report from the town manager on current events.
Thank you, Mayor. One item to report. On September 15th at 8 a.m., we're having the ribbon cutting and a pancake breakfast at our Fire Station 10. That's located at 1330 West Guadalupe Road. We invite all our citizens to come up and tour the facility and have some pancakes. Thank you.
And what's your assignment that day? Are you the pancake flipper or batter maker, or?
I have not received my official assignment yet. I'm assuming it depends on how well I treat the chief between now and then.
And public is invited.
Public is invited, yes. Love to see everybody come.
Question for the mayor.
Vice Mayor Sens?
Are you going to talk about permits for August?
Oh, single-family residential permits. Year to date, through August, we are just, I think, a handful, maybe 10 under 1,900 single-family permits issued in the town of Gilbert. So the residential housing construction continues on a very strong trend.
211 last month.
Thank you. Agenda item 43, report from council members on current events. And 44, report from mayor on current events. I think we've covered what we needed to tonight. Thank you for your participation. Meeting adjourned. And so Jenny's lined us up to spend the night.
And I'm going to do that.
That'll be great.
Now, what's interesting about it is that Jenny and I are part of the